Hello. Today's stories come from r slash am I the butthole. It's a butthole extravaganza today. 5 stories from Am I the Butthole, starting with Am I the butthole for walking out of the baby shower my in-laws threw for me? The situation is kind of a mess. I, 27-year-old female, am expecting my first baby with my husband. This is the first grandchild in the family, in-laws, and they said that if the baby's a boy, then we'll give him my father-in-law's name. He's dead due to cancer. I had no problem with that. This happened before we found out the gender of the baby. My husband and his family had me do things like attend prayers and do other rituals before the reveal at the doctor's. I didn't like that, but went with it to keep the peace. Doctor appointment came, and it turned out to be a girl. My husband cried in the car, then turned his phone off to hide from his family, then finally told them. His mom and the others made their frustration and disappointment clear, which bothered me because my daughter deserves to be celebrated. But they ghosted me for days, then started coming over and visiting constantly, referring to my daughter as my son, claiming the results were false and basically pretending it's a boy. I had several fights with them after they refused to stop it, and my husband sided with them, despite seeing how wrong and unreasonable what they were doing was. We didn't speak for a while. Sister in law called to apologize, then informed me she arranged for a baby shower for me. I was so excited and happy. But when I arrived, I saw blue balloons, blue cake with father in law's name and decorations around. I was so confused I had to sit down. Sister in law explained they were still hoping the gender results are false and it's a boy. I looked at my husband and he agreed with her. I lost my temper and yelled at them all, calling them delusionals and telling them to stop treating my daughter like she's unwanted and act like she doesn't exist by throwing a party for their imaginary grandson. Mother in law broke down crying. I took my bag and walked out immediately. They started yelling at my husband, followed me outside, and started arguing about how I insulted his family and his dad's memory by acting like that. I told him to wake up and see the insanity in his family's behavior. He said they needed time to process the fact that it's a girl, not a boy as they expected, and insisted I play along, and they'll soon get over it. I said absolutely not and demanded he take me home. He said no, so I called an Uber and left. He was fuming. He called 15 times, then texted that he won't be coming home till I get my butt over and apologize for ruining everything they've done for me, and accusing them of being mentally unstable. I haven't responded yet. He's constantly pressuring me to get right with his family before we even talk about anything else. This is like an episode of The Twilight Zone. Can't even imagine the dread of when OP walked into the baby shower. She's not the butthole, but the in laws and husband most certainly are. I have sympathy for the passing of a loved one, but that seems just a little too far for me. Does anyone disagree? Next story is Am I the butthole for refusing to move for my girlfriend? I'm a 46-year-old male, and my girlfriend is 25. We are expecting a baby girl in June. Though the baby was a surprise, we are both beyond thrilled to be parents and are counting down the days until she gets here. In preparation for her arrival, I surprised my girlfriend over the weekend by starting to work on the nursery. I bought paint, a crib, dresser, rocking chair, toys, anything you could possibly need for a new baby, and set up the boxes in our spare room to show my girlfriend when she returned home from work. Once she got home, I blindfolded her, led her up to the room, and then took the blindfold off to finally reveal my surprise I had been working on all weekend. Instead of being happy or saying thank you, she just looked confused. When I asked what was wrong, she explained that she thought we would be moving once our lease was up in May. We live in a great house, in a great neighborhood, with some of the best schools, preschools, parks, etc., and she's never even mentioned moving until just then. When I asked why she wanted to move, she said it was because my ex-wife lives in the same neighborhood and she doesn't want to run into her when doing things with the baby. While that is true that my ex-wife lives in the same neighborhood with my kids from my previous marriage, we hardly ever see her or run into her. Even then, my kids from that marriage are nearly teenagers at this point, so it's not like they're likely to all be on the same schedule or going to all the same places. I have a good relationship with my ex-wife and our kids, so I really have no idea where this is coming from. I told her that there's no reason to move, and she's been extremely upset. She even went to stay with her sister for the night, and that was on Monday. She refuses to come back until I change my mind. So, am I the butthole? Edit. To everyone asking, my ex wife and I divorced 4 years ago, and I didn't start dating my girlfriend until 2 years ago, and she moved in 8 months ago. She was on the pill, but that's the only form of birth control we were using. We did discuss that if she were to happen to become pregnant, then that would be a happy surprise, and it was. My ex and I divorced because she was cheating on me with multiple men, including my friend. Okay, so a bit unusual for me, but I read the story on face value and I was leaning towards yes, OP is the butthole. But then I got to the edits in the comments, and oh my goodness, did this man get exposed and flamed. Let's check it out. OP is the butthole, and that is revealed by his comments. He met both his ex and current partner because they were his secretaries. He got his current partner to go to all the same doctors that his ex went to. He renewed the lease without even bringing it up with his current partner. Add in the fact that she's so much younger, and it's clear he's just simply traded in for a newer model, and even his current partner is starting to realize it. She wants to move houses so she can start moving out of his ex's shadow and actually have some say or control over her life. He's a controlling butt and painted his main post in a way to make himself look better. Edit to add, he also plans on having the kid take his last name, which his current partner does not share, and plans on sending the kid to all the same schools he and his ex sent their kids to. He's literally trying to continue his and his ex's life with a shiny new model. It's naive to start a family with someone and expect nothing about your life or desires to change. The lack of willingness to compromise or even see how wrong this is turns it from naive to controlling. I mean, she's acting like a 25-year-old. You knew she was 25, right? And on to the next. Am I the butthole for inviting the guy my mother cheated on my father with and left him for to my wedding? I've never posted here, so I don't really know where to start. Basically, I'm planning my wedding, and my father has issue with one of my invited guests. Multiple, actually, but we'll keep this post focused on the biggest issue. I'm inviting my stepfather. I'm not even sure if that's still his title to me anymore. My mom died shortly after divorcing him, but we've remained in touch. My stepfather is who my mom cheated on my dad with and inevitably divorced to be with. I loved my mom dearly and still do, but she was very ruthless and cold to my father during the decade-long divorce case, which my stepfather funded. He was independently wealthy, and I'm sure that's what got my mother's attention. I went through a period of my childhood hating my stepfather, but I eventually chose to stop blaming him for my parents' divorce. He was a father figure to me for a long time, and I didn't want to live in that hatred, so I moved on from that to build a relationship with him. Sorry, I'll cut to the chase here, trying to give a little background. So I invited my stepfather to my wedding, and I assumed my father would know he was coming. I didn't really think much of it, honestly. I figured since it's been decades, my father would get over this grudge, as we both know my mother was the main person behind all the nasty court maneuvers and lies, etc. Anyways, my stepmother found out through my fiancé that my stepfather would be there. We weren't keeping it a secret, it just came out naturally through wedding conversation. She was not happy at the time, but didn't talk about it. She then mentioned it to my father, and I got a big, long text from her about how there's going to be serious issues if my stepfather is going to be coming to my wedding. How both my father and grandmother are going to be extremely upset, and that I should have addressed the situation a lot sooner. She's going to come over to talk to us tonight about it, and I've been riddled with stress since I got that text last night. I'm pretty certain that I'm going to stand my ground that I have the right to invite anyone I want to my wedding, but I don't really know how to say that without coming off like a jerk. Also to note, I'm funding the majority of this wedding myself. My father hasn't really pitched in for anything financially. The only job I gave him was to watch my dog, who's our ring bearer. Am I the butthole? Watch the dog? Did he just say watch the dog? Because I'm confused, since OP was trying to make the case he wasn't the jerk here. Speaking of dogs. Yeah, solid, you're the butthole. From me, big dog. I don't know anything about the personal ties you have with your respective dads, but I also don't know in what parallel universe you thought inviting your dad and the guy his wife cheated and left him for was even remotely okay. Might as well invite a gorilla with anger issues while you're at it. Side note, even if your mom was the main divorce goblin, he very much so enabled it, so he's not exactly innocent. Our fourth story is, would I be the butthole for pulling my son out of a TV show because of his behavior in school? My son, 12 years old, landed his first role in a TV show a few months back. The show isn't very big, but obviously he's ecstatic about it, as are myself, I'm 40, and my partner, 45. When he received the offer and accepted it, my partner and I sat him down and gave him some ground rules about how we expected him to behave in future. We all know how people can act obnoxiously once they receive a little bit of fame, and my partner and I really don't want my son to end up being one of those people. We especially didn't want him thinking that because his acting career has kicked off, that he can let his schooling fall behind because he's famous now. So we sat him down and gave him some basic ground rules. This was just stuff like focus on school the exact same as you would before, obviously with some considerations given his new job, and to not act like he's above anyone else. Very simple stuff. Well, the problem is that even though he's agreed to this, he's already gone against it. Obviously, once the news broke, he became quite popular at school, even though they haven't started filming yet. And from what we can tell, he's already ditched his old friends and has been adopted by the popular kids. That isn't too bad on its own, but apparently he's also been lording it over other kids and his grades have immediately started slipping. The final straw that brought this to our attention was him refusing to do work in class and attempting to ridicule his teacher by saying that he makes more money than she does. So, given this, even though I know it'll hurt my son's career before it's actually started, I'm thinking of pulling him out. We expressly told him not to do this, but he's done this anyway, and I feel like if I back down now, things will only get worse. That said, my partner agrees that this is bad, but thinks that me pulling him will crush him and is a jerk thing to do. She thinks that we should sit him down and talk to him and give him some time to adjust with the change in his life. We argued about this quite a bit, and she's confided in her sister about this, and now they're both telling me that it would be a jerk move. I think Manderblues in the comments had the best and most insightful take. I'm not sure I could have said it better. You're the butthole. Kids are buttholes about everything: backpacks, shoes, video games, dates, imaginary dates, everything. You had a wholly unrealistic expectation that a 12-year-old could manage this event in the way you wanted. Most adults would struggle with Instapopular and not being pulled in that tide. You set him up for failure, although I know you did not intend it. Keep talking about choices and consequences to his actual life, but let him do the show. The natural consequences of his actions with his friend and at school are to be paid at school and with his friends. Let him learn this lesson. And now for our final and spiciest of buttholes. Am I the butthole for making a joke about my brother's affair at his wedding? When I was in elementary school, I was the type of kid who got disrupts class often on their report card, so I never focused much on school. My district had this system where they would pair high schoolers with younger kids to help them with school, etc. And my mom made me do that after I kept getting in trouble. So my tutor was a freshman, Abby, so she would come to our house after school to help me with my homework or something. I barely remember. My brother John was the same age as Abby, so they would talk to each other and ended up dating. She stopped tutoring me officially after like a month, but since she was at our house a lot, I also talked to Abby a lot, and we were close as well. Fast forward 10 years, Abby and John got married and had a kid together. 5 years later, John tells me that he's getting a divorce because he's met someone new. It sucked because I like John and Abby together a lot, but whatever. Then he tells me he had an affair with his new girlfriend. Also sucks, and I told him he shouldn't have hurt Abby like that, but whatever. I also asked Abby how she was doing, and she wasn't doing well, but she told me she didn't want her to be the reason I have a bad relationship with my brother. However, 2 months before the wedding, Abby calls me and tells me that my brother's girlfriend has been harassing her nonstop. She showed me the texts, and his girlfriend was saying some pretty disturbing things about how she's so much better than Abby, taunting Abby for having to share custody of her kid now, etc. Just making fun of her and bullying her. I told my brother about this, and he said he would ask his girlfriend about it. A month later, I asked him if he ever brought it up, and he said he did, but saw nothing wrong with the text, which pissed me off. I confirmed that he saw the same texts I saw. Abby apologized for involving me in the whole thing in the first place and encouraged me to still go to the wedding, where my brother asked me to make a speech. The speech went well until I made a joke. The gist of the joke was me turning to his new wife and telling her that if she's learned anything from this, she should know that my brother will never let his wife stop him from finding the love of his life. This got my brother and his wife really mad, and they kicked me out shortly after. And my brother has been calling and texting me nonstop, yelling at me. Am I the butthole? Okay, let's just take a moment to appreciate how good the joke actually was. I think it's so good he's not the butthole, but apparently I'm wrong. You know how vigilantes are technically in the wrong, but we all cheer them on anyway? You're the butthole, but high five. I read the title and thought, really? You're not sure? And then laughed at the joke, so maybe we're all buttholes. If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.